بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم، الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. بداية أشكر مركز طروس لدراسات الشرق الأوسط على هذه الاستضافة، وأشكرهم على هذا الطرح المتميز اللي فعلا احنا بشكل كبير على أحداث سياسية متسارعة. أنا أعتقد بأن مؤسسات المجتمع المدني لديها دور جدا كبير. هذا الدور يجب أن تأخذ الريادة فيه حتى يكون هناك وعي أكبر داخل المجتمع، وحتى يكون هناك عطاء أكثر في اتجاه إيجابي. أحيانا تأخذنا بعض الأحداث السياسية ونجد نفسنا في أجواء سلبية وأجواء يعني غير اعتيادية، لكن هذا النوع من الأنشطة يعطينا أبعاد أخرى، سواء كانت تاريخية، اجتماعية، اقتصادية إلى آخره، تعطينا نظرة إيجابية للمجتمع. بداية ودي أشرح لكم طبيعة المحاضرة اليوم. راح أتكلم باللغة العربية في البداية، بعدين راح أعرف في ضيفنا اللي راح يتكلم باللغة الإنجليزية، وأنا راح أذكر النقاط الأساسية في الكلام اللي تفضل فيه. أما بالنسبة لأسئلة الجمهور اللي ودي يسأل بالإنجليزي يعني بالعكس ما في مانع، واللي يبي يسأل بالعربي كذلك ما في مانع، أنا راح أترجم السؤال بشكل مباشر. الدكتور أحمد ياسان دكتور اقتصاد، وهو عميد كلية العلوم الإدارية في جامعة شهير في تركيا، وهو دكتور اقتصاد حاصل على دكتوراه اقتصاد من جامعة ميريلاند كوليدج بارك في ولاية ميريلاند. وبالمناسبة أنا قعدت 6 سنوات في دي سي اريا، وأعرف أن هذه من أفضل الجامعات في المنطقة ومن أفضل الجامعات في أمريكا، فخريجينها غالبا يكونون يعني خريجين متميزين جدا. هو مستشار في مجموعة منظمات منها البنك الدولي والبنك المركزي التركي، وكذلك مركز تحليلات أكسفورد. هو عضو مجلس إدارة وعضو في لجنة السياسات النقدية في المركز المركزي التركي. كذلك هو عضو في مجموعة خبراء شبكة الأمان المالية في مجموعة ال20. وأخيرا هو متخصص في الاقتصاد الكلي وفي الاقتصاد السياسي وفي الاقتصاد القياسي. حاصل على جائزة مركز ابن خلدون لأفضل الأبحاث العلمية. So first of all, I would like to thank طروس Center for this invitation. I think this kind of events would have a very nice impact on the society. Also, I would like to welcome Professor Ahmed Yassan for presenting the challenges of the international economics and the Middle Eastern economics in the modern world. Professor Yassan, he has a PhD in economics from University of Maryland, College Park, one of the top universities in the United States. Professor Yassan, he is a consultant in a couple of distinguished places like the World Bank, the Oxford Analytica, and the Central Bank of Turkey. Professor Yassan, he is the Dean of the College of Administration of Shahir University in Turkey. So we have a couple of topics today. We are going to talk about a couple of topics. Professor Yassan راح نتكلم في أول موضوع، هو موضوع التحديات العالمية للاقتصاد. هل هناك فعلا تحديات قادمة للاقتصاد؟ الدكتور في أحد الدكاترة كتب كتاب جدا مميز عن الأزمة المالية القادمة في 2020 أو في نهاية السنة هذه في 2019. هل هناك فعلا أزمة قادمة؟ هل هناك فعلا financial crisis أخرى؟ هذا راح يكون أول محاورنا، وهو التحدي الأساسي للاقتصاد العالمي. So Professor Yassan, would you mind if we start with the challenges of the international economics? Do you think that we might face any financial crisis in the maybe in 2019 or 2000 or the beginning of 2020? There is a couple of distinguished economists mentioned that we might face like a serious crisis very soon. Can we start with this topic, please?
Okay. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. I would like to first thank to طروس Center for the kind invitation. I have been here for about 3 days. There's an economic research forum conference held at the Arab Fund. It was a great conference, and I would like to thank for the hospitality to the Kuwaiti people, to the people here, because I was busy for the last 3 days, from the morning to the night, and I was very taken good care of. Would you like to say, or not now? Okay, thank you very much again. You understand?
Yeah, I think.
So I guess we will go with questions and answers.
Sure,
Right?
yeah, sure.
So okay. Again, thank you very much. It's a great pleasure to be here. I was here for about 12 years ago. Again, good to be back and to see the change in the country. Definitely, there's a big change in the last 12 years. Good to observe that. Actually, I will come to actually, that's a good idea probably to go with the questions. But before that, I have something in mind. I had a presentation, but our plug didn't work. My computer is not fitting to the plug. So I will come to the parts, but let me start from a more general perspective. More general perspective is that the center of the world is changing. Center of the world, there are studies, very good econometric studies. For example, one of those economic studies has been done by Danny Kua. He used to be a professor at London School of Economics. And there are many economists doing it, actually. There are many economists, econometricians. They are trying to predict the center of the world. If we point out one center of the world, it was in 1980s, it was somewhere in the Atlantic, because one of the biggest country in terms of economics and finance was US, and other one is Europe and Russia. So that's why if we indicate the one center of the world in 1980s, it was somewhere in Atlantic. Okay. But they continue their studies, and the center of the world, center of gravity in the world economy, is moving towards the east. Actually, I learned this back in 2012 in Finland. I was attending a central bank conference there, and Danny Kua mentioned that the center of the world is passing through Turkey right now. And it is passing through my town. I am from Izmir. He said that center of the world right now is somewhere close to Izmir. And probably from 2012 onwards, probably that center is now moving even towards the east. Probably somewhere again in Turkey, somewhere in Adana or some other place. But one of the observation probably we need to make is, first, the center of the world, if we indicate the gravity of the world, center of the world as one place, it is going towards the east. It is not because of Turkey, it is because of mainly China and East Asia and India. So these are the actually major economies growing very fast in recent years, in the last couple of decades, and because of their high population. Indonesia also. And also the second observation is the following. We cannot have only one center of the world, actually. It's not like the end of the history argument provided by Fukuyama after 1989, when the Berlin Wall has collapsed. Even, Fukuyama recently, he republished his book, and he said, he put a question mark to the end of the book, to the end of the title, saying that the end of the history. History never ends, apparently, as we see, because in the book, he was claiming that the globalization, liberalism win over socialism, win over the other sort of civilizations, in a sense, and there is no better world. So we will not have the history again. Everything is seemed to be perfect. We are getting to the good direction. But it didn't turn that way. It even turned other way around. I mean, we have more wars now, more conflicts, and more center of the world. Right now, a second observation, we are not just talking about the one center of the world. It is not anymore New York or Washington, D.C., as it is predicted or suggested by Fukuyama by claiming the end of the history. But now we have many centers of the world. We have Washington, D.C. We have financial center as New York. We have definitely California and so on. We have European centers. We have one way or another Russia, Moscow is one center. We have Chinese cities also considered to be centers as well. And definitely Turkey is emerging one of the global and regional power. Turkey is one of the G20 countries, and especially after 2008 crisis, G20 becomes even more important. So in addition to the center of the world moving towards the east, also the centers in the economic development is increasing in numbers. So it has many implications for the region. I will come to that part. It has many implications, and it is also related with the brother Usame's question that actually we are talking about the global crisis since 2008, and we are still at the exit stage of the global crisis. And then this year, especially in the last 3-4 months, when the Federal Reserve reversed its discourse, we start thinking that 2019, some very prominent economists start saying that 2019 could, in 2019, we might face another global crisis. And this will be even tougher than the 2008 crisis because the world is more indebted. The countries, the governments, the individuals, the consumers, we are all indebted. There is much more debt accumulated after 2008 crisis. So there are many pessimistic stories going on, and especially the recent move by the Federal Reserve, because they were planning to increase the interest rate in 2019 by 4 times. Then they reduced it to 3 times, and recently now even there are discussions that probably they don't increase at all, or probably they start having quantitative easing. So this observation tells us this is the world of global anxieties. This is the world of global uncertainties. Even it is the case for developed countries. Nobody would expect that Federal Reserve, which is considered to be quite a credible central bank, reverses its position by 180 degrees, considering that there will be an interest rate hike, but then they decided to loosen the monetary policy. Same for the ECB, same for the European Central Bank. These are all actually related with the 2008 crisis. And these are all at the end related with the hegemonic powers, the increasing number of the centers, global economic centers in the world. Would you like to translate or?
Yes.
Okay, I will go on.
أهم النقاط اللي ذكرها الدكتور ياسان بروفيسور ياسان بأن هناك كثير من التحليلات بأن هناك مركز للعالم. هذا المركز العالم يتحول مع الوقت، وهو يتجه إلى الشرق أو إلى الشرق الأوسط مع مرور الوقت، وهو يمر في الفترة الحالية في تركيا وفي إزمير تحديدا، وهي منطقة سكن بروفيسور ياسان. هذه فكرة التحول بأنه لا يمكن أن يكون هناك مركز واحد للعالم عبر التاريخ، وهذه بحسب كلام بروفيسور ياسان بأن هذا واقع حقيقي عبر التاريخ، بأنه لا يمكن أن يظل أحد في القمة أو يظل أحد بلا تغيير. يجب أن يتحول مركز العالم مع الوقت، وهو يمر الآن حسب اعتقاده في تركيا. هناك تحليلات تقول كذلك بأن مثل كتاب فوكوياما كتاب نهاية العالم بأنه هل هناك نهاية للتاريخ؟ الدكتور يقول بأن كثير من التحليلات تقول بأنه لا يمكن أن يكون هناك نهاية للتاريخ، لأن الأحداث تعيد بعضها، وهناك كثير من الأحداث تحدث الآن مثل الحروب وغيرها تتكرر عبر التاريخ. كذلك من الأمور المهمة اللي ذكرها الدكتور بأنه قد لا يكون هناك مركز واحد للعالم، قد يكون هناك مراكز للعالم بحسب كلام الدكتور، مثل ما يقول حضرته الآن، يقول واشنطن، نيويورك، الصين، وكذلك ربما تركيا تكون هي أحد مراكز العالم الاقتصادي في هذا الوقت. انتقل الدكتور كذلك للسؤال اللي أنا تكلمت عنه، وهو هل هناك أزمة اقتصادية قادمة؟ هل هناك حدث قد يكون كبير؟ يقول نعم، هناك تحليلات بحدوث أزمة اقتصادية، وهناك تحليلات قد تكون من بعض الاقتصاديين المميزين، لكن لا يمكن أن يكون هذا أمر حتمي. حتى لو كانت تحليلات من الاقتصاديين المميزين لا يمكن أن يكون أمر حتمي، خصوصا ونحن نرى أن هناك تحول في طبيعة البنك المركزي الأمريكي وتعاطيه مع الأحداث. لأول مرة يكون البنك المركزي الأمريكي يتجه في اتجاه معاكس ويرفع سعر الفائدة في هذا النوع من الأوقات. So Professor ياسان، الحين أبي أسأل الدكتور ياسان عن كتاب تكلم عن الأزمة، اللي هو كتاب ري داليو، مؤلف كتاب اسمه Principles، ومؤلف كتاب اسمه الأزمة القادمة. ودي أسمع شنو رأي الدكتور في هذا الموضوع. So Professor ياسان, maybe you heard about Ray Dalio, who wrote Principles and the debt crisis in 2019-2020.
What was the name again?
Ray Dalio. So Ray Dalio, he's the founder and the chairman of the biggest hedge fund in the world. He was one of the few people who predicted the 2008 financial crisis, and he gained a lot of money. Now his net worth is about 18 billion. هذا راي داليو من النوادر في العالم اللي تنبأوا بالأزمة الاقتصادية، والآن هو من أغنى أغنياء العالم، لأن الشرق بحسب توقعاته وهو يملك اليوم 18 مليار دولار. So do you think that his prediction would be accurate? I mean,
yeah.
Would it happen very soon?
So I was getting to that point. After now we again start hearing this. Rubini is also saying same. I mean, one of the best things that some of the economists are doing is that they're always generating some pessimistic scenario. One way or another, 1 year or 2 years or 5 years later, the crisis come anyway. But let me come to that point, because I don't, even we have some sort of economic turbulence, it is not going to be same as the 2008 crisis. Because after 2008 crisis, many measures have been taken. And from certain perspective, actually global community, the states, different states, especially G20 countries, were quite successful in tangling, in trying to deal with the global crisis. Because this global crisis, 2008 global crisis, is quite similar to the Great Depression. After the Great Depression, the cost was much higher than the cost that we are incurring right now after 2008 crisis. So actually there is we learn a lot from the Great Depression. Ben Bernanke was the head of the Federal Reserve, and his main specialty as an academic was to study Great Depression, to explain that Great Depression. Can you imagine? He wrote his papers mostly after 1980s, but they were still, the Americans, they were still trying to understand the Great Depression. Why? Because it was such a big crisis for them. So, but given that they learned a lot from the Great Depression, they knew that after 2008 crisis, they had to solve the problem from the monetary policy, from the fiscal policy side. And more importantly, they needed to coordinate the other countries, because after 1980s, the countries globally have been much more integrated. So what did they do? G20 in the past used to be just having their meetings at the ministerial level. There was no presidential or the presidential meetings at the G20 meetings. But after 2008 crisis erupted in September with the collapse of the Lehman Brothers, they immediately they invited all the presidents to IMF World Bank meetings. And at that time, the son Bush was the president of US, and they asked the other countries, other G20 countries, actually to get help from them, such that there will be some policy coordination. So what was the policy coordination? All the G20 countries start pumping money into the economy. So there was some sort of a monetary losing, such that there will not be any liquidity crisis, because the Great Depression was kind of a liquidity crisis. And on the fiscal side, they start expanding on the fiscal side, because if in this sort of crisis time, generally people do not want to spend, so the government take over, and if the government should spend. And more importantly, they agreed on not to have a currency war. So they wanted to coordinate their fiscal policies and the monetary policies. So far they seem to be quite successful, and thanks to also other developing countries, especially to China. For example, China has contributed a lot actually after 2008 crisis for the global economy. The economy used to be growing by 9% before 2008 crisis. It has been reduced to around 6%, but still it is good. But more important, they start borrowing, they start buying more products, or they start boosting their domestic economy more, and it helped a lot to the other countries. But as a sacrifice on the part of China, they wanted to get some IMF World Bank reform, so they increased their share, and their Chinese yuan now as a part is considered to be in the IMF special drawing SDR bundle. So they got some compromise from the US especially, but at the same time they contributed for the global economy, and there is a good coordination. So I will come to, I'm taking it from a historical perspective, but later on, especially in the last 3 years, now the crisis get into another phase, because it started like a financial crisis. It turns into a debt crisis, especially with the European Union debt crisis of 2011. And then it turns out to like a political crisis. More populist leaders in Europe, in US, start coming into the power. And the first thing that they do is either they do something related with the minorities, or in US, in the case of US, we see that instead of dealing with the coordination, international coordination in the monetary policy and the fiscal policy, they start having trade wars. So this is one of the biggest challenge. So coming to the question, with this background, now the US economy has been growing. All the other economies, developed countries' economies especially, was growing quite with very high growth rates relative to their numbers. I mean, we start seeing growth rates more than 3% in US in quarterly terms, which is quite good actually. For US type of big economy, actually 3% growth is quite a good growth rate. Same thing for the European Union. But this growth is now slowing down. And while this in the last 2 years, while they're having good growth rates, they start negotiating on the trade grounds. They start having trade wars with China. I'm not saying that they are right or wrong in trade wars, but they wanted to take advantage of their situation right now, because they didn't want to start the trade wars just after 2008 crisis, because after 2008 crisis, US economy was more fragile. So the US economy gets better, and then it is like a war of attrition, or is some kind of a game theory. When they get more powerful, they say to China that, okay, now let's get into the table and let's discuss. It is like the Plaza Accord sort of argument back in 1980s, that US has done the similar arguments with Japan. Now they are doing it with China. But the problem is that the problem is not about the debt issue. I mean, many of those people are actually saying that after 2008 crisis, we have the same level of debt, even we have more debt. And also, central banks have already reduced their interest rates, so they have less instruments, less equipment to fight against another crisis. So this is the major arguments, most of the people who are claiming that there will be another global crisis. But I think that the major problem the world economy is facing right now is the global economic uncertainty, global economic and political uncertainty, or economic policy uncertainty, let's say. Because in the past, back in 1980s, we have Reagan, Thatcher, or in Turkey we have Özal. And everybody's mind was clear. It was more liberal economy, market economy will be better for the rest of the world. The globalization idea came up, and there was a general discourse spread by developed countries, especially by the US, saying that if you follow the market-friendly policies, it will be good for all of us. But now, China is complaining to World WTO, and they are suing US. At some point, back in 10 years ago or 15 years ago, US was complaining that China is not part of WTO. China became a part of the WTO. China is more globalist right now than the US. So this is a big uncertainty. This is a big uncertainty because we don't know what's going to happen next year. And I don't think that it is about Trump. It is the US strategy, because we know that even there were more trade restrictions, more sanctions in the time of Obama. I mean, there are some statistics. Actually, during the time of Trump administration, there is less trade restrictions. Obama has started this because this is not just the policy of a president. This is the general policy of the US, because they know that it is the right time to bargain, and they cannot go on with this sort of globalization. There's a theory by Gilpin. They say that it's called hegemonic stability theory. Hegemonies provide financial stability, more open economies through reducing trade restrictions. So this is the role of the hegemonic powers, that they provide some sort of a public good to the rest of the world. But in return, they make their currency an international currency, and we use the dollar as international currency right now. But right now, US is saying that I don't want to play the role of hegemonic currency. I want to stay away. My country is enough for me. So because there are certain costs of the playing like a hegemonic power. You have to be in everywhere. You have to spend for military. You have to do many things. But right now, US is saying that the benefits of being hegemonic power is less than the cost, or become less than the cost. So the cost is more than the benefit. So US doesn't want to play the hegemonic role. This is the big uncertainty, because we don't know what is going to happen 10 years from now. For example, in the 1980s, we knew that most of the countries will liberalize anyway. Most of the developing countries, most of the developed countries will do that. But right now, we don't know the direction. This is the big uncertainty. Are we going to be more closed economies? Are we going to be reinventing some ISI industrialization strategies? Are we going to be just dealing with the digitalization? So this is another aspect also. I mean, the technology is also already increasing the uncertainty in the world. Many of the big companies are losing their shares in the stock market because of the technological improvement. So we don't have that sort of certainty anymore. So that is the biggest challenge. I don't think that we will have a very big major global crisis again, because we learn from our mistakes. The central banks are readier than before. Fiscal policies are more in place right now. But we will have probably a prolonged period of uncertainty globally. I don't think that it is about Trump. It is about now, as going back to what I said at the beginning, now we have more centers of the world. We have China, we have India, we have Turkey, we have US, we have European countries. So they will be always in bargaining on certain policies. This is also what we observe in foreign policy, right? In the past, you just rely on US. This is what Turkey used to be doing, right? You just rely on one country, and then you manage your international politics accordingly. But now, in certain issues, you make an agreement with Russia. In other certain issues, you cooperate with US. In certain issues, you cooperate with other countries. So this is because of the declining powers of the hegemonic power of US, and the emergence of the more regional powers. But this, this brings uncertainty. So my answering to your question, probably we will not have an immediate global big crisis like we had in 2008. But even worse, probably, we will have a prolonged period of uncertainty. Each and every issues, we will have different cooperation, different coalition of powers getting together and trying to agree on certain issues. That will be the future. And this might be good for the countries or bad. We'll come to that, inshallah.
Okay. نقاط سريعة ذكرها. يقول لا أعتقد أن ستكون هناك أزمة بمثل أزمة 2008 لأسباب معينة. السبب الأول بأنه هناك تعاون جيد بين محافظين البنوك المركزية العالمية، وهناك تفاعل أكثر وضوح من البنوك المركزية. على سبيل المثال بن برنانكي وهو محافظ البنك المركزي الأمريكي في ذلك الوقت كان يكتب بحثا عن الأزمة المالية أو ما تسمى بالجريت ديبريشن ما بين و1933. هذه الأزمة درسها برناكي بشكل جيد، والغريب مثل ما تفضل الدكتور يقول كاتب رسالته بالثمانينات يدرس أزمة في 1920. السبب بأنه يريد أن يفهم أبعاد هذا الموضوع وكيف يعالجه، وبالفعل لما حدثت أزمة 2008 كان هو على رأس البنك المركزي الأمريكي وعرف يتصرف بشكل صحيح. لولا وجود برناكي كانت الأزمة ستكون أعمق، ولولا دراسته وفهمه لأبعاد أزمة 1929 لكانت الأزمة أعمق بكثير. ليش؟ لأنها تستخدم سياستين: السياسة النقدية بشكل جيد وضخ الأموال من قبل البنك المركزي، وكذلك السياسة المالية وهي زيادة السيولة عند الناس. كذلك يعتقد الدكتور بأن الاقتصاد الصيني يساهم مساهمات جدا ممتازة بعكس ما كان في الثمانينات والتسعينات وحتى في 2000. اليوم الاقتصاد الصيني مرتبط ارتباط جدا كبير بالاقتصاديات العالمية، وهو مساهم جيد في استقرار الاقتصاد العالمي. يستغرب الدكتور يقول يعني أمريكا تقول أن الصين تلعب بروحها ومداخلة في منظمة التجارة العالمية، واشتكوا على الصين. لما دخلت الصين وفرضت سياساتها ومبيعاتها على العالم أمريكا واشتكت مرة ثانية وقالت الصين مو قاعد تتبع السياسات بشكل جيد. يعتقد بأن أمريكا مشكلتها ليست مشكلة ترامب، مشكلتها مشكلة إرادة التحكم، تريد أن تتحكم في العالم بطبيعتها وليس لأن رئيسها ترامب. وكذلك يقول بأن التجارة الحرب التجارية ما بين أمريكا والصين هي قد تكون أحد التحديات. شنو التحدي الرئيسي وأين تقع الأزمة القادمة؟ في اعتقاد الدكتور بأن الأزمة القادمة هي أزمة غموض. الغموض قد يجعل الأزمات أطول، وقد يجعل الأزمات مختلفة بالشكل. الحين أنا بتكلم برأيي الشخصي. أنا مرة قابلت الأستاذ أحمد جاسم سعدون وسألته، قلت له تتوقع لو يبنى كل البيانات السابقة للعالم وحاولنا نسوي تحليل للمستقبل هل نقدر نسوي تحليل؟ قال لي مستحيل. قلت له ليش؟ قال لأن المعطيات متغيرة. اليوم أنت تضارب بالسوق، أنت تضارب ضد كمبيوتر. لما تبيع تشتري ترى كمبيوتر وهو قاعد يبيع ويشتري قدامك، ردة فعله بأعشار الثواني وليس بالثواني. إذا سرعة في التعاطي مع الأحداث، وهذا يسبب غموض بأن نحن نتجه إلى اتجاه غير واضح. يذكر الدكتور بأن أمريكا لديها نمو جيد لكنه متناقص، وأمريكا تحاول أن تفرض رأيها بالقوة على الدول الأخرى. على سبيل المثال لما يتفاوضون مع الصين في الأزمة الأخيرة، أزمة الحرب التجارية، سببوا أزمة إلى الصين وقالوا يلا تعالوا نقعد وإحنا في وضع القوة، وتفاجئوا بأن الصين ما كان عندها مشكلة، وكانت هم ردة فعلها قوية تجاه اللي سوته أمريكا في التجارة مع الصين. فختاما يقول أن المشكلة ستكون مشكلة غموض وليست مشكلة متكررة لسنة 2008. يقول لا أعتقد بأن هناك أزمة. إذن الدكتور يعني يرفض فكرة ريديليو، وهو أحد أفضل الاقتصاديين اللي عايشين حاليا، واللي يعتقد بأن هناك أزمة قادمة، ويقول لن تكون هناك أزمة، أو على الأقل لن تكون بهذا العمق. So would you like to present something from your slides, or should we go to the other topic?
Yeah, we can go to other. Oh, one thing probably I would like that. Another uncertainty that comes along with this political uncertainty globally is the technological uncertainty. Now we are all talking about digitalization. We are all talking about, for example, about Amazon. The Jeff Bezos is the richest person in the world right now, more than $130 billion of wealth. And this Amazon is actually not about the wealth, it is about the creative destruction. One big company comes, do many things more efficiently online, and many of the chains are being closed, including Sears. Even Walmart is having difficulty in competing with Amazon, and they are quite fearful of Amazon getting into the many businesses. Even Merck's, for example, it's an international transportation company. They are even afraid of Amazon, because if Amazon decides to have a transportation company, they can do it, and probably they could do it more efficiently. So, but this is thanks to the technology. In the past, we used to think that, for example, after the Second World War, even it affects our education system. We have economists, we have political scientists, or we have engineers. And there is this sort of a division of labor, and even in the universities, division of faculties, engineering faculty, management faculty, and later on when they graduate, they go to the different parts of the big companies. I mean, engineers work in certain divisions, and the finance people, management economists work in other divisions. But now we see the emergence of the multi-skill individuals. It is not just enough to be a graduate of a certain university. Now people are investing all the time. Why? Because they have to be competitive in the market. And this is especially valid for our region, because in the Middle East and North of Africa has a huge youth unemployment. The median age in the region is quite low. So it is a gift and at the same time a responsibility. We have to find jobs for the youth. And especially with this digitalization, actually we start with digitalization and Industry 4.0, blockchain, cryptocurrencies. All those things are actually related. But at the end, this might be reducing the number of the jobs available. And we have, in the region especially, we are lagging behind. We have to think about this as well. Because the actual oil of the region is the youth population, right? Because they are the ones who, they will have their entrepreneur, they will be the entrepreneurs, they will be the future for the country. So we should take advantage of this. This is another uncertainty because we don't know how the digitalization will be evolving. Is it good for the region, or it is just the developed countries? Are we going to have just Amazon but not other companies? Are we going to just have Alibaba but not us? This is also related with the recent debate between China and US. Just let's think about the Huawei issue. The daughter of the owner of the Huawei has been jailed in Canada, not in US even. CFO, and the daughter of the owner of the Huawei. And it's not just about certain activities, it is about the long-term competition. The competition right now is not just in the industrial production. It's not about the certain industries. It's not about what they are discussing right now in trade negotiation is not the import and export of the regular goods. It is about the intellectual property rights. It's about it's about the IT industry. It's about digitalization, whether the China will allow the Google to get into the Chinese market or not. So these are being discussed. So this is another global uncertainty actually, because we don't know how it is going to be evolving. And in this, bigger countries have more advantage. I mean, it is relatively more difficult. At the end, Silicon Valley is in California. I mean, we have some students, they have very good ideas, but whenever they have good ideas, they are being hunted by some headhunters, and they are taken to the California. I have one student like that. He came up with a very good idea of wallets for cryptocurrencies, and he has been taken to California, and he established his company over there. So we, in the region, we are relatively in a disadvantaged position. So we have to think about this. We shouldn't be closing down our economies, by the way. I mean, we should do something else. We should have more global companies based in Kuwait, based in Istanbul, based in, this is possible right now with digitalization, but this has to be way forward in order to stay competitive in the international arena, because traditional forms of economies are changing very quickly. And this is another uncertainty. And that's why actually at the psychological level, also at the personal level, people are feeling it. Many of the white Americans, I mean, there was recently a paper committing suicides because they don't have job security. I mean, they don't want to work just like a unskilled Uber driver. They don't want that. And the social structure is changing. So it's another uncertainty. And those people can do anything. They can vote for Trump. They can do some, they can go to the extremes. Even in the US right now, we are observing it. Democrat is going to the extreme and the Republicans are choosing Trump. So these are the extremes. So these are all increasing the uncertainty. So, and you can feel this in here with the oil prices, right? Oil prices all of a sudden rise up to, back in the global crisis, up to $120. But each and every day, it is open to the certain decision. What happens to the Chinese and US trade negotiations? Whether the Baltic index of as a trade indicator is declining or not. I mean, we are all following those news to predict the future. So that's why, in order to be ready for the future, we have to think about what sort of skills we need to develop. We have to be more agile, and we need to develop our soft skills. We have to be more multidisciplinary in our perspective. We are not anymore like just regular engineers. We have to be engineers, but at the same time, we have to have good communication skills. We have to know finance. Finance people should know certain computer programs. That's why, for example, instead of MBAs, we have the increasing demand for business analytics. So these are all actually reflecting the uncertainty, not just in international politics, but uncertainty is coming from the technological improvements.
نقطة سابقة نسيت أذكرها. يقول الدكتور بأن أحد المشاكل اللي قاعد تستخدمها أمريكا هي أنها تستخدم الدرامات للأعمال الخيرية بالدولار وتسيطر على العالم بطريقة غير مباشرة. وهذه أحد الأعمال اللي فعلا أمريكا قاعد تستخدمها بشكل مباشر أو غير مباشر، ويكون لها سيطرة بشكل جدا جيد على بعض الاقتصاديات. يؤكد الدكتور مرة أخرى في أغلب نقاطه بأن الغموض هو المشكلة الرئيسية القادمة. الغموض التكنولوجي هو أكثر النقاط اللي أكد عليها. يقول أمازون لو دخلت أي قطاع غالبا راح تسيطر عليه. والحين أمازون توها دخلت السعودية، وأتوقع قد يكون لها تأثير على قطاع التجزئة بشكل جدا كبير. راح تأثر على قطاع التجزئة، لأنك لا تستطيع تنافس إنسان ضخم وإنسان عنده قدرة جدا عالية وميزانية مفتوحة تقريبا بقدرات محدودة. فلذلك شنو يقول الدكتور؟ يقول لازم نعرف ماذا يجب أن نتقن، ويجب أن يكون لدينا مركز لتطوير الأعمال والفرص الوظيفية للشباب. يجب أن لا يدخل الشباب في غموض بأنهم لا يعرفوا ما هو مستقبلهم الوظيفي. هذه أكثر نقطة أكد عليها، بأنه تستطيع دول المنطقة أن تكون مركزا، وحتى لو كانت الكويت هي هذا المركز، لتكون مركز دولي يستطيع أن يتواكب ويتوافق مع تطورات العالم. يقول أن المنطقة متأخرة تكنولوجيا، وهذا يجعل كثير من الطاقات المميزة لا تستقر في المنطقة، ولا تستطيع أن تجد فرص مميزة داخل المنطقة. وهذا هو أحد أسباب جذب الطاقات المميزة إلى السيليكون فالي في كاليفورنيا وغيرها. يؤكد في أكثر من مرة بأن الغموض هو المشكلة، وهو أحد الأمثلة اللي ضربها في الخلاف الصيني الأمريكي. يقول مشكلة هواوي لما قبضوا على أحد الماسكين الشركة، كانت المشكلة ليست مشكلة قانونية بأن تداولت شيء غير مسموح. يقول بأنها مشكلة تجارية، ودليل بأن لم يكن التحقيق بشكل واضح، وحتى أن السجن كان في كندا. يعني التأكيد على أن الغموض هو المشكلة الرئيسية. ويقول على المستوى الشخصي حتى في أمريكا هناك حالات انتحار بين الأمريكان نفسهم، وهناك حالات توجه إلى التطرف بسبب الغموض، بأنه لا يعرفون المستقبل فيذهبون إلى التطرف اللي مثله في الرئيس الأمريكي الحالي. ختاما يقول يجب أن نكون مستعدين للمستقبل. اللي بيشتغل هندسة لازم يحط معها تكنولوجيا، اللي بيشتغل تمويل لازم يشتغل معها تكنولوجيا، اللي يبي يعرف أي صنعة جديدة لازم يوظف معها التكنولوجيا حتى يستطيع أن يتواكب مع التطورات القادمة، وحتى لا يجد نفسه خارج قطاع التوظيف. احنا عندنا مجموعة من الأمانة مجموعة من النقاط اللي نبي نذكرها، لكن أنا ماني عارف إدارة البرنامج هل نروح حق النقاط ولا يعني نفتح مجال الأسئلة. Would you like to go to the questions, or would you like to continue?
No, it's fine. We can go. I guess it's about an hour. We can go on to questions. It's up to you.
كل ما الشباب يسألون الأسئلة اللي
خلاص أنا بتكلم عن محور أخير وبعدين في عندنا سؤال إذا بدك نبدأ فيه. دكتور عبد الله الشامي.
Yeah, I'm Dr. Abdullah Shami, Economic Nutrition from Durham University. Yes. By the way, you mentioned that about the new crisis, and there is uncertainty. The thing is, and the big challenges actually, which regard the next financial crisis, is how to create demand. And the demand is the biggest challenge. And you mentioned Amazon. Amazon is not a regular company; it's a listed company using digitalization. And the era of analog has been announced to be dead since 2008. So everything is changed from analog to digital. The uncertainty that most of the people are using the classical models. They doesn't use the new models, which belongs to the very complex statistics and many aspects and very deep to analyzing all the data. So the big data is the next oil. So the thing is, the uncertainty is because they can't understand how to analyze the big data. For example, I did my thesis on oil sector, and the majority of companies and countries doesn't actually know how to analyze the data. The majority of central banks, a lot of oil companies, they do not exactly know why the prices has been go up or went down. The thing is, it's simple. Everybody can trade. So once they get a trade, a lot of liquidity is going there. And what they did, the Americans did in the last 16 or 18 months, they just cut the liquidity from that, which has about 25% from the actual prices. So everything went down. So they stimulate the market by the stimulations of the liquidity, not the supply and demand. The supply and demand is already dead. And nobody can create the demand now. And you can have an example in Dubai. They're actually having a big challenge. And the biggest challenge is they can't create the demand anymore. And that's the big issue now for Emirates. So they're trying to fight back to Turkey, to other neighbors, so they can create the demand. This is the only strategy that they have. And it's already dead. Because they can't. It's a small country with a small aspects, with a small instrument. They have no room to maneuver that. Anyway. So it's going to a dead end. That's one of the issues. The challenges that are happening, and you mentioned Turkey as an example. Turkey actually just using the classical models. And you know the challenges that are happening to your currency and the inflation rate. President Erdogan used the 80s and 70s aspects. And he actually just copied the Thatcher scheme, which is that's why he had these problems last year, and there's another problem coming maybe in the next summer, because a lot of money should be back. I think $480 billion is on debt on banks and the government, which represent that there is another currency issue is going to happen, and they can't increase the interest rate anymore because it's already very high, and he fought about that. And for a fair fact that I know you work there, the central bank, and you have a very opposite opinion to him. So is that right or wrong about what I know about your opinion with his decision? And how you can challenge that, the next crisis that's happening in Turkey? And I think it's sometimes it's June or July, I think, there is another payment, a big payment should be made. And that's it.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
دكتور عبد الله الشامي يتكلم عن مجموعة نقاط ودي ألخصها بس بالسؤالين الرئيسيين اللي هما بأن تكمن مشكلة الغموض الرئيسية في صعوبة تحليلات البيانات أو عدم قدرة البنوك المركزية. دكتور عبد الله الشامي يتكلم عن مجموعة نقاط ودي ألخصها بس بالسؤالين الأساسيين اللي هما بأن تكمن مشكلة الغموض الرئيسية في صعوبة تحليلات البيانات أو عدم قدرة البنوك المركزية على تحليل البيانات بشكل جيد، خصوصاً البيانات الكبيرة. إما يعني بسبب أن ما عندهم خلينا نقول معلومة، أو ما عندهم خلينا نقول اهتمام، ماكو خبرة أو معلومة. النقطة الأولى اللي ذكرها الدكتور بأن الرئيس التركي تعامل مع الأزمة التركية السابقة أو أزمة الليرة السابقة بنظام تقليدي قديم، نظام السبعينات والثمانينات. وسؤاله هل يعتقد بأن هذه الطريقة الصحيحة للتعامل مع الاقتصاد بشكل عام ومع تغير العملة والتي قد تسبب أزمة قادمة لتركيا؟
Thank you. First of all, I would like to thank you for both questions. They were all great questions. Starting from the first one, I completely agree with you. Amazon is a data company, and that's why actually we have to think about it. It is the new world of the big data, how to process that data and how to make use of it and to improve the marketing skills to generate new products and so on. But unfortunately, all this data actually is being collected mostly by the developed countries, by the big corporations. Even small countries do not have much to say about their countries. We are now, for example, trying to find some sort of a middle ground with Google. Even, I mean, they do the advertisement, but they don't pay taxes. I mean, even from the tax perspective, nobody pays anyway. Amazon, first of all, nobody pays anyway. But even from there, but on top of it, I mean, this data is here and it's going to be used even 20, 30 years from now. They're going to know us better than we know ourselves. I mean, there are this sort of horror stories also going on. Probably that is even more of a challenge. World Economic Forum, you might have observed some futuristic people are coming up, by the way. And it is consistent with what we are saying, that now we have many people trying to predict the future. It is not a coincidence. It is because we have lots of uncertainties. We need those people to have some sort of brainstorming to tell us what might have happened. And this artificial intelligence, robotics, drones and so on, I mean, the world will not be the same as it is right now. And that is a big challenge. I agree, and I completely agree with the first part of your question. And the big data will be there. But again, we have to think, and I also agree with your conclusion. For relatively small countries like Dubai or like Emirates, it's a big challenge. I mean, Dubai wants to be a financial center, but it didn't. I mean, it is not a success story by now. I mean, there is certain process, but it shows us that a city cannot be a financial center without being influential in the global arena. Or you invest for 20, 30 years to be a financial center, and then you cannot change your strategy afterwards. That's why, I mean, after Dubai, or Bahrain probably has started early, but after Dubai, Qatar, relatively smaller countries in population, they try to diversify their economies and they chose finance. But even this digitalization is actually affecting finance. There is no need for this sort of big plazas. There is no need for big cities. I mean, you can have the finance from anywhere in the world. So that's why the smaller countries probably should think even more. And probably what is even more important is to have, for example, we are looking for professors in business analytics because we are short in supply. We are looking for people who are multi-talented. So there is a good example like Singapore. Singapore doesn't have any natural resources. It's a very small country, but they are investing a lot for education. They have two very important universities, NTU and other university, having the world highest rankings. And they are investing a lot for IT. They are investing a lot for digitalization. I guess Kuwait, United Arab Emirates and others, it is an opportunity actually. You can have an e-commerce company here, but you can sell your stuff in Germany. That is possible now. You can you can sell your stuff in Istanbul. You can sell your stuff in China. Not China, probably China is more restrictive. But
too many proxies in China.
Yeah, that's why it is probably it could be an opportunity as long as you can generate some sort of a monopolistic edge where you come up with a different idea. So that's why for the first part I completely agree. And there are discussions that we should boost the demand by distributing some sort of minimum wage to the low income earners. But this is not gonna work, as you rightly pointed out. Nobody is paying taxes. Amazon, Jeff Bezos is the richest person in the world, but they didn't pay any tax at all. How do we expect that they are going to pay taxes to redistribute it back to the low-skilled labor? So it's not going to happen. And we shouldn't be designing the society like that, right? Because some segment of the society will be working, the robots are working, there are some rich people, and then there are some low-skilled people just receiving subsidies. This shouldn't be the way. So all the social structure will change. So demand is there, but how to solve the demand problem, it has to be even investing more for education to become improved. Sorry?
Should be changed in terms of philosophy, because the market is already relying on taxation. Taxation is toxic and unpredictable.
Yeah.
Okay. You can't rely on that. You should back to the aspects to get another to countries overtake the natural resources and try to distribute again. So back the socialization era.
Socialization. What do you mean by socialization?
It's the theory of communism. So it's more Karl Marx aspects that you can get back to the natural resources and let the country invest in it, not the private companies.
But it leads to certain autocratic behaviors. I am more on the side of the market.
But you need to be more radical. You need to be more radical. Otherwise, because for one example, in Qatar, they produce the same amount that happens in Australia. The net income is coming from the natural gas in Australia is only 800 million. And for Qatar, 28.8 billion. So,
but still, I mean, we try those communist ideas, having more closed economies. Closed economies will not work small economies anyway. I mean, probably it is better to be more competitive, to try to be more agile, trying to improve the skills through the more market conditions, to generate more entrepreneurs, for example. Entrepreneurs having commerce with different parts of the world, having establishment businesses in Africa. Africa is emerging, for example. I mean, Africa, or having businesses in Europe, in Eastern Europe, in Central Asia. I guess this should be the way forward, because especially for small countries, if you follow some more socialist ideas. Anyway, as far as I see, Kuwait is quite a redistributive state. Anyway, I mean, state is powerful, state is redistributing. So somewhat you are a communist country, not communist country, but somewhat the state is taking good care of its people, right? His people. So this is a good thing. I guess the way forward is to make his people more compatible, more competitive, increase their agilities, making them even more commercially oriented, encouraging them to invest in different countries, having different entrepreneurship. I guess this is a better solution for me. Okay. All right.
I'll translate, and maybe you can go to like short answers if you wish.
Okay.
So to give more opportunities.
I will.
أنا المعذرة استأذنت الدكتور بأن
This is the academic's habit. I go with long answers. I should be answering you.
I'm sorry.
No, sorry.
Yeah. استأذنت الدكتور بأن تكون أسئلة قصيرة وإجابات قصيرة. فإذا بس بعد إنك بس بقول الترجمة وبعدين لك السؤال مباشرة إن شاء الله. إجابة على سؤال الدكتور عبد الله، يقول فعلا أن أمازون يعني تعرفنا أكثر منا، وهذا أحد التحديات، بأن إحنا أصلا كدول ما عندنا بيانات جاهزة. الدول الصغيرة ما تملك بيانات عن نفسها. حتى لو تسأل أمازون عن الكويت، يعرفون عن الكويت أكثر منا، يملكون قدر كبير جدا من البيانات، يستطيعون تحليل السوق بشكل أفضل منا إحنا داخل السوق أصلا يعني. فيقول هذا أحد التحديات، بأن لدينا غموض عن أنفسنا لا يوجد عند الآخرين. فكذلك لذلك كثير من الناس الآن والاقتصاديين توجهون إلى محاولة تفسير المستقبل ومحاولة شرح ماذا سيحدث في المستقبل. اليوم وايد من الاقتصاديين يقولون والله راح تصير ازمه ما راح تصير ازمه. طيب ليش ما نعيش احنا الوضع الحالي وما نفكر انه شنو راح يصير؟ لكن غموض الحدث وخوف الناس من المستقبل يجعلهم يتوجهون الى كثير من التحليلات. دبي لا يعتبرها مثال ناجح، لان مثل ما قال الدكتور عبد الله بان لا يوجد هناك طلب عالي. لم تستطع دبي خلق طلب عالي، استطاعت خلق هيكل اقتصادي جيد لكن لا يوجد طلب عالي. سنغافورة هي المثال الجيد لأنها استثمرت بالبشر بشكل أكبر من الاستثمار في البنيان. لذلك أقوى الجامعات العالمية في دولة صغيرة جدا تجدها في سنغافورة. هذا كان مثاله. ختم الدكتور بأن هناك طرق لزيادة الطلب. مثالها هو يسمونه الحد الأدنى من المعيشة. ممكن نقدم الحد الأدنى من المعيشة أو نقدم رواتب بمستوى الحد الأدنى قد تساهم، لكن يقول قد لا تكون هي الحل النهائي. وأخيرا ختم بأن يجب أن يكون هناك تهيئة لأجواء الأعمال حتى تكون جيدة للشباب ويستثمرون بشكل أكبر. لو سمحت تعرف بنفسك.
There was also second part of the question.
Can we make it short?
Short, okay.
بجاوب الثاني السؤال.
And then inshallah. For the second about the Turkey part, we have more than $300 billion of external debt, and most of those debt is by the private sector. The state is not indebted. The debt to GDP ratio of Turkey is about 31%. 31, it depends, well, 31 as far as I know, but and for many big countries, I mean for US, for Europe, they are close to 100%. In Japan, it is 250% something. So on the state side, we don't have much problem. On the private sector that we have, but this is because Turkey has been investing a lot. Most of this debt has been used to establish new factories, or people use it for real estate developments as well. This is kind of investment at the beginning. But most of this private sector debt is not short term. So we don't need more than $300 billion by the end of the year. We only need $40, $50 billion. And also, the good thing is that we immediately release our current account deficit because there's a big alignment in last August. Now everything is cheap in Turkey. So the good thing about the market economy actually is that adjustment is taking quickly, and then you adjust your price. Now everything is cheaper in Turkey. So Turkish people import less and export more. There are more investors coming into Turkey and investing in greenfield or some FDI sort of things. Even buying a house in Turkey is kind of an investment actually. It's considered that way. So all those factors actually have reduced the current account deficit. So we don't need that much of money actually, and then it is more sustainable.
I said there is a big portion of that should be paid in the summer. That's what they said precisely.
Well, but I mean, this is what we live in 2008 crisis. They said that because Turkey has been running current account deficit for about after 2009 crisis for about 20 years then, and before that also Turkey was running current account deficit. Running current account deficit means that we are accumulating debt because we have to finance this. But this has been running out for about 20 years, even 30 years if you'd consider the 1990s. We have sometimes crises, but these are exchange rate crises. We never have debt crisis. I mean, the debt crisis could be resolved because Turkey is a growing country. Even though, for example, is it today or yesterday? The growth figure came up and the Turkish economy grew by 2.8%. But in the last quarter, Turkish economy shrinks by 3%. But now, so this is an adjustment. This is a good thing. It means that the worst is over, things will be better because Turkish exchange rate, real effective exchange rate of Turkey is 75. It should be around 100. So Turkish currency, from a long-term trajectory, is already devaluated, already undervalued by 25% at least. So definitely, I mean, I also met with some people here before in last couple of days, and you have also invested in Turkey, and especially here in Kuwait, you don't have this sort of exchange rate fluctuations. But we are used to it in Turkey. We have 1994 crisis, 2001 crisis, 2008 crisis. We have a lot of crises. But all those crises makes Turkey even stronger, not weaker. Because even those sort of adjustments need to be taking place. It's a kind of a reform, right? The price adjust, instead of investing in real estate, you invest in something else. Instead of investing in real estate, you establish more entrepreneurs, you invest more in the industry. So I believe that it's not a matter of, summer or something. In the long-term trajectory of Turkey, even at the worst time, as we had a big crisis in August, there's a big currency hit, but still Turkish economy grew by 2.8%. Turkish economy didn't shrink by the order of 10%. It just shrank by 3%. So I believe that probably for the 2019, still we have relatively lower growth rate. It will be a positive growth rate most likely, but but this is a good adjustment. So yeah, it's a good thing for the long run, I must say. Thank you. Again, it was long though.
باختصار ان ديون تركيا وان كانت 300 مليار تشكل تقريبا 34 او 31%، لا يعتبرها الدكتور مشكله كبيره، لان هي جزء من تاريخ في الديون، وهي تعدل هذا كم من الدين بشكل جيد وتتعاطى معه بشكل جيد. تركيا مرت على مجموعه من الازمات الشديده جدا وخرجت منها بشكل اقوى، ويعتقد بان كل ازمه مرت على تركيا كانت رده فعلها جيده لدرجه انهم طوروا قطاع جديد او استثمروا في مكان افضل او جعلوا الفرص الاقتصاديه افضل. يعتقد بان هناك فرص جيده للشباب، يعتقد بان العمله اقل من قيمتها الحقيقيه، يعتقد بان مستقبل تركيا جيد اقتصاديا، ويعني بشكل عام لا يعتقد بان الدين مشكله رئيسيه قد تواجه تركيا في المستقبل.
الدكتور دخل علينا بشكل روتيني وقام يتكلم بالظواهر اللي يشوفها بالاقتصاد الحالي، صح ولا لا؟ ولكن هناك الظواهر او الظاهر دائما لا يعطي الحقيقه. على سبيل المثال نشوف القمر ككره صغيره، لكن هل هو كره صغيره؟ لا. عندما صارت الازمه في 2008 بعدها 3 سنوات او 4 سنوات طلع كتاب في بريطانيا، ما ادري والله اسم مؤلف انا نسيته، فكان يشكك في الازمه واختلاقها ايضا، وكان يجيب مبررات ان امريكا كانت مضروبه تريليونات الدولارات، وهذه زبده احنا علينا الظاهر لكن نسينا الجهه الثانيه، كانت مضروبه تريليونات الدولارات وعليها ديون ضخمه، وكانت كل العالم يصب بهالبنك ويصب دول الخليج، شرق اسيا، الصين، كلهم كانوا يدرون مئات المليارات فيه. وعندما افلس، تعرف انت النظام هناك عندما يفلس خلاص لا يمكن ان يقيم واحد دعوه على البنك بهذا. طيب وين راحت الاموال هذه؟ الله اعلم، ما ادري وين راحت. انا اسال الدكتور سؤال شخصي، هل يعتقد هو في عقيدته ان هذه ازمه مفتعله، وخصوصا تعودنا كل 10 سنين تاتينا ازمه اقتصاديه، وهذه صارت دوريه، كل 10 سنين نمر في ازمه اقتصاديه. فرجاء تخلي الدكتور يعطينا رايه الشخصي فقط لا غير. شكرا.
So again, it's a theoretical question. So Mr. Muhsin stated that he thinks he stated that after 2008 financial crisis, a couple of books stated that this is not a real crisis. It was created by the capitalism system or by the American to cover their huge debt. So he's stating, Mr. Muhsin, like he's saying, I want to ask you a personal question. Do you think this is a real crisis, or it was created by the American people?
I guess it is a real crisis. I mean, it is created by the American people for sure, because throughout the history, probably this is one of the first time that the crisis started from US, started from a developed country. We have the subprime mortgage crisis started in US, and it spread to Europe, it spread to developing countries. So it's a real crisis because we suffered throughout the world. I mean, but definitely in terms of the origin of the crisis, I mean, it has started in US. US has led to this crisis.
يقول الأزمة حقيقية بحتة، ولا يعتقد بأنها مختلقة، خاصة أن عايشنا احنا تبعاتها وأزماتها ومشاكلها ووصلت إلينا بشكل عميق. يعتقد بأن الأزمة مختلقة بطريقة أخرى، وهي بأنها خطأ أمريكي. هي مختلقة لأنها خطأ أمريكي. احنا تأثرنا فيها، لكنها فعليا هي خطأ أمريكي.
خطأ متعمد ولا هو متعمد؟ هذا ترتيب.
Is it on purpose? They do it on purpose, or I mean?
نحن لا نريد إجابة دبلوماسية، نريد إجابة صريحة.
They went straight.
Yeah, they made a mistake, let's say. The mistake was the low interest rate after the September 11, after 2001. So they kept their interest rate low for an extended period of time. So it was not purposeful, it was a mistake.
يقول هي غلطة مو متعمدة، هي غلطة لأنهم غلطوا
20 مليار ومليارات.
غلطة لأنهم خفضوا قيمة
لا عند أمريكا ما يتابعون يعني طبيعتهم.
لأنهم خفضوا قيمة الفائدة
طبعا لازم يسوون
فهو طبعا أنا أنقل لك كلامه، لأن فعليا السبب الرئيسي أو جوهر المشكلة هو أنه خفضوا سعر الفائدة لمدة طويلة.
I understand Iowa part. Iowa. Okay, we agree.
Would you mind if you say like our last word because we're closing?
We are closing. Okay. I would like to thank. Actually, I wish I could understand Arabic. It will be much easier. I hope to meet again. Thank you very much for your hospitality. By the way, the questions were great. It's mashallah. Congratulations, and thank you very much again for hosting me. I wish the best for the طروس Center, and again I would like to thank for the organizers to invite me today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.